Today you're going to hear the story of a 6-year-old who is transforming in front of his parents' eyes. After a traumatic birth, he suffered with colic and just constant crying, and now as a 6-year-old was dealing with terrible daily tantrums. With chiropractic care, we're going to find out how he's doing, but what's even more interesting is his chiropractor uses INSiGHT scans for thermography, EMG, and heart rate variability. We're going to learn about how those show what's going on in the nervous system. Also, what is fascinating is we're going to learn about why Dr. Chantal became a chiropractor in the first place and her personal story, which is just beautiful. Hi, I'm Jenna. I'm the founder of Adjust Your Media and host of What Chiropractic Doesn't Cure podcast. But before we dig into it, I'm going to tell you this episode is sponsored by my membership, Adjust Your Marketing Blueprint. It is where chiropractors and their teams can get strategy and support, tools, templates, and tutorials to do their digital marketing in-house, saving time and saving money, and honestly, saving a lot of frustration. So the link is in the show notes. You're going to find out more about that. But now let's get into this episode, get into this story. Thanks for joining me here today. So today on What Chiropractic Doesn't Cure Stories of Innate, I have Dr. Chantal Shelstad, and I'm excited because she had commented about an intriguing story in my Facebook group. And so I wanted to have her on today to share the whole story. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So you're a chiropractor in Tennessee, right? You just moved there?
Yes, about a year and a half ago.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll get into that in a minute. But you said that you had a 6-year-old boy who was changing before his parents' eyes. And I loved how you said that it wasn't just you were noticing objective measures, but they were seeing functional change. So tell us that story.
Sure. So these parents came in, their main complaints for their son was terrible tantrums. Like he would go 0 to 10 in an instant over something so much as just asking him to pick up his toys or go to bed. And you could just tell they've been dealing with this for years, that stress. You can just see it on the parents' faces. He had been crying since birth, terrible colic, not sleeping. It just had progressed to a point where he's 6 years old. And again, going 0 to 10 in an instant over one small thing. And mom described it as traumatic. She put it in quotes on the intake form, traumatic tantrums. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot for the whole family. Mm-hmm. So, I explained how chiropractic works. We did some scans on him, the INSiGHT scans, and I really delved deep into his nervous system. And I said, hey, you think he's going 0 to 10? He's already at a 7 or 8. It doesn't take much to get him to 10 if you're already at an 8. And I said, let's start adjusting him. And they were, heck yeah, let's do it. So one adjustment, they came back, I think about 2 days later. And I wrote it down. They said he cleaned up his toys with no fighting, just did it, and went to bed at 7:30 without a fight. And you could just tell the parents were like, is this real? Like, I don't know what's happening. Right. Just one adjustment. And then I wrote the second adjustment. Mom had told me he was more flexible. And I loved that. And I love that she said that. I wrote it in my notes. He was more flexible. And that's really what I'm going for these kids. So I've been seeing him for only 3 weeks now. And every time the parents are coming in like, I don't know if this is working, but it's working. Like we're shocked. It's not traumatic. He's not throwing these tantrums. He's going to sleep. Like, this is amazing. And changing before their eyes.
Yeah, I love that you said you did the INSiGHT scans, which if people don't know, tell us a little bit about what those are. I know there's heart rate variability, but tell us more about those scans.
Sure. It's a 3-step scan, the CLA INSiGHT scan. It does thermography, surface EMG, and the HRV, the heart rate variability. And it shows the nervous system as a whole, how it is, and spinal nerves, postural muscles, and stress response over time. And for him, especially, his EMG was really high energy. So his body was constantly in just this high energy state. Even if he wasn't expressing it all the time, that's what it was feeling. And I explained that to the parents that, hey, super high energy, he's on that gas pedal. And if we stay on that, he's going to run out and just crash. And we don't want to have that. So we're working on regulating him right now.
I love that. And so I know that I have seen the printouts of those where it'll show different red areas, yellow areas, green areas. So what did his look like?
A lot of stuff in the neck, especially
Okay.
that upper cervical and also towards that CT junction. And for his story, it was an emergency induction
Mm,
that led to an emergency C-section. And they actually had to use a vacuum to get him out of the C-section.
wow.
So lots of neck trauma. So of course they said that he had one good day. And then from day two, screaming all day, all night, couldn't lay down, couldn't sleep, anything. And basically for the last 6 years.
I did not know, and I know a lot of different things about birth for not being a birth
Mm-hmm.
healthcare provider, but I did not know that they would need to use a vacuum extractor in a cesarean. That seems like that was really difficult situation. And I'm sure that for those parents who were so happy and relieved to get their baby delivered,
Mm-hmm.
because isn't that always for all of us, our goal is to see this baby delivered and okay, he's well, mom is well, all right. And then to be like, wait a minute, this is just the continuation of some difficulties. That's really hard.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I saw it firsthand with my own children. I mean, my daughter, my firstborn, was this child that I'm describing with screaming, not sleeping. She was a C-section birth, not with a vacuum, but I mean, C-sections themselves, I mean, they're
Mm,
usually in an emergency. They have to just
right.
reach in there and grab what they can. And I mean, thank God we have them.
Yes.
But then we have to, make up for some of the trauma that they experienced. And this is before I was a chiropractor. I didn't know any better, and she was this child. So I see my family reflected in this child that I'm helping. So yeah, I get it. Birth trauma is real and we're here to help them.
Right. And I love how you have that perspective that you can share your story or just come from that place of understanding, even if you
Yeah.
aren't sharing it, that you have that understanding of everyone doing their very best with the information that they have at the time that they have and taking those steps forward. But then what a hope to give people of saying, I've seen this, I've experienced it. And then here's the data, here are the areas that are lit up red, that are high energy. Here are the things. To go back on that, I think a lot of people are more familiar with heart rate variability because
Mm-hmm.
they have it on smartwatches or things. So I love that this is such an accessible tool for people to understand, oh, how quickly is your heart rate going down or going
Mm-hmm.
up when you need it to? And yes, to see if this child is always, like you said, the gas pedal. So explain a little bit about that, the gas pedal and the brake pedal. I think that's such an accessible analogy you used.
Yeah, and it's not mine. I got that a lot from that PX docs, but it just makes so much sense for people. And I use it for my adult patients too. When describing a lot of the HRV, we're like, hey, you were on the gas a lot. And that's when you're high stress, you're just going, 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 going. And think about that if you're racing your car, you're going to run out of gas unless you
Yeah.
stop at some point and refuel. And then that's when you get the really exhausted people because,
Mm.
again, you're out of gas. And that happens with our nervous system. It's when you're at this high stress, high anxiety, everything going, going, going all the time. A lot of those people present with more ADHD symptoms and you will get exhausted. Your nervous system needs that balance
Right.
with ease for sure.
Yeah. And I think that we can all understand that. Even this weekend, I was sitting down to watch a TV show with my husband. We're watching reruns of ER, and because that's who we are. And so we're trying to watch ER, and I was like, I'm just jittery. I'm just like, I can't quite settle down and just enjoy this show. And I think that that's when we can realize maybe are our children that revved up also, where it's like you said, he wasn't starting at 0, he was starting at 7 or 8. And then what can we do, with adjustments, helping that nervous system to be like, no, we're back into rest and digest. We're
Mm-hmm.
just going to easily downshift
Yeah.
into a lower gear.
Yeah. Cause our bodies should be calm and adaptable most of the
Right.
time because we need that fight or flight. We need to be able to be flexible in those stressful situations. You need to be able to run away or deal with a high stress situation. Or if you're going even into a birth, I mean, that is a high stress situation, but you need to be able to come off of those things and rest. And no wonder this child, he wasn't sleeping. And his digestive system was a mess too, because again,
Sure.
he's high stress and you fight or flight, everything shuts off until it can deal with the situation, whatever is perceiving it to be.
Yeah. And it is so easy as parents to just think, oh, he has attention deficit disorder. Well, we can get him a prescription for that. And it's so easy to think, oh, well, there's a pill, there's a potion, there's a lotion, there's something that we can do. Even my chiropractor reminded me last fall, my 8-year-old, his skin on his hands, he's just really susceptible to that completely drying out, cracking, and bleeding in the winter. And my chiropractor mentioned it like, oh, buddy. And I was like, I'm doing all of the things, I'm putting all of the great things on it. And he said, inside out, maybe we could do something from the inside to help even with his skin. And it's so easy to just think, okay, constipation, we'll give him something for that, instead of going back to why did the nervous system shut down this function? Because it was in survival.
And you're going to the root cause. Now you said that reminded me again of my own daughter, right? Because all my experiences, it seems like they all lead back to my children and my life, be able to help my patients. And I think about, the colicky and the screaming, and then she presents more as ADHD. And I did supplements, and we even went to therapy. We went to everything, and people are like, oh, that's just who she is. Until she was regularly adjusted, did we actually see changes, because her nervous system was revved up too. And I didn't know. This was again before I was a chiropractor. And now she's high energy, but manageable. Like she can manage it, and she's flexible and adaptable and resilient. Some of my favorite words, because we're not curing ADHD. We're not curing constipation or colic, but we're letting them be adaptable and flexible and resilient in life.
Yeah. A couple of the questions that I have written down, you've already answered, because I wanted to say, as a mom, how does this story affect you? And so you've already answered that. And it seems like you have a great balance of your story informing you, but then your patient's story, that you're coming from just a deep place of caring as well. And my other question was, what is the goal of chiropractic? And you've said beautifully that adaptability, that flexibility. I like that you mentioned the word resilience too. I don't think we talk enough about that life keeps happening, even to our kids. We move, we put them in a different school, seasons change. We ask our children to be resilient. And I hate it when people just say, oh, kids are resilient. And you're like, they innately are resilient. However, we can't just expect them to just manage everything that's dumped on them without a clear nervous system. So when you talk about resilience, what comes up for you?
Well, that's what I think is resilience through life's challenges. So I thought about that. I want to be flexible, because if life comes at you, you need to be able to bend and weave through things. I want to be adaptable. Same thing, you can adapt to different situations. And resilient, because you are going to face situations that you can't really swing around. You're going to have to go through. But if you are resilient, if you are strong, you can get through those situations without it really totally changing you for the worse and affecting you terribly. And that's really what we want for our own children, to be able to grow up with those skills as well.
Yeah, I love that. You've mentioned a couple of times things before you were a chiropractor. So tell us your story. How did you become a chiropractor?
So I was a doula after the birth of my daughter. So that was a very difficult birth. And I decided that I wanted to help other moms maybe not face the same things I did. And I decided to become a doula, because I was a big birth nerd. Did that for a few years. Also was a stay-at-home mom, and we had 3 kids. And I was wanting to help moms and children in a different capacity. And this was probably a God moment. Chiropractic pops in my head. And I was like, hey, well, they helped me in my pregnancy. They helped my husband a lot. Like maybe that's something I could do. I brought it up to my husband. He was all for it, of course. And I started chiropractic school in my mid-30s with 3 young children. They were 3 to 8 years old. So young kids.
Yeah.
Starting school, and it has been a dream. Just love it. Such a good way to positively impact the community, especially the people who I was and continue to be, the moms, the children, even the husbands. I want to help people that are me and my family as much as I can.
I love that. You're such a rock star, and I love it that you showed your children that at this moment of your life where you're like, absolutely, I can adapt to these challenges. I know how intense that program is, and that you were willing to be curious. I think one of the things that I want to pass down to my children, like you said, being resilient, but being curious. Challenges and problems are so much easier when we come from a place of curiosity, so that you were like, hey, I'm curious about becoming a doula and helping moms in this way. Hey, I'm curious about becoming a chiropractor and helping in this way. And I love that you had the support of your husband too. I mean, I'm so grateful for mine. Although I do wish he was a chiropractor, because there are some days where I'm like, if you were a chiropractor, you could just check me right now and it would be so convenient. So I see his point of saying like, oh yeah, go do that, because that would be awesome. So I want to kind of wrap up this conversation though with asking you, what do you wish all chiropractic students knew? Like either before they started or during the program, what are some things now that you're in practice that you want to pass down to those students?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of stuff I've thought
Mhm.
about for that. There's things that I have learned in school that I didn't think I would ever use, and I use a lot, like neuroanatomy. Now
Mm.
I've dove deep into functional neurology and that stuff. I love it. So really focusing on that as a student, and also just, I mean, other chiropractors told me this, and I want to pass it to others. Shadow doctors all the time during school. Really try to figure out what you want to do, because there are doctors for like sports and elderly and pediatrics and pregnancy and families. There's so many different ways you can approach chiropractic. So you have to just discover that yourself. So shadowing other doctors, just call them up, email them. That's what I did during school. I would Google a bunch of different chiropractors in the area, send them messages. Almost everybody was like, yes, come and shadow me. We're a good group of people. So that's a huge thing to do when you're a student, because once you're out in the real life, a little harder to do that for sure.
Yeah, I love that. That is a great point. What are some things that you did when you shadowed that made it a more valuable experience? Were you taking notes, asking questions? Like, what were some of the things you did when you shadowed?
I definitely always had notes with me and just observed how they interact with the patients, how the office ran. I mean, that's a huge
Mm.
thing, and offices are run differently everywhere. How they even brought the patient back, what treatments were they doing, adjusting style. You can learn about how to adjust somebody, or how you wouldn't want to adjust somebody, or how you wouldn't want to treat somebody. That's all valuable. And just having your eyes and ears open as you take in the information. And then talking to doctors about how they became a doctor, and what their favorite thing is too. It's just it's a good community to be involved in.
Yeah, that is so good. I love it that you were listening to the communication, how they're talking with patients and things, because I feel like in this AI world that we are, I guess, going to have to deal with, it is, I think, going to become a dying art of realizing like when we see things like, oh, AI can write your email, just tell the AI what you want to say. But that person to person communication, like, will these skills begin to be lost? And I don't necessarily mean small talk, but the small talk that is a little bit deeper, where even just in those moments of transition, like you said, how they're bringing the patient back, how are
Hmm.
they using that time to
Hmm.
communicate and to do it well? It's just a valuable human skill that I think will, if we continue to, yes, email and message people and whatever, but then when we don't have autocorrect, when we don't have auto email, how are we actually making eye contact and communicating with people?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing patients 3 times a week sometimes. You are the face they're seeing a lot. And so you really need to be good at your communication and your rapport with patients, and being able to communicate chiropractic, and also just be interested in their lives and what's going on with them, because you are seeing them more than their medical doctor is. So really
Yes.
being building that relationship with them.
Wonderful. Well, I am going to wrap this up for now, but I am going to put some different studies for folks to find in the notes as well about cases and kids like this. I love promoting pediatric chiropractic because, like you, it's been wonderful for my kids. And I love that you are also like hands on actually working with kids. So thank you for sharing this story today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.